Hello, meatbags. I'm feeling down again. Um, I feel the need to start up another stream. I wanted to talk about my my own memories and just kind of, I don't know, preserve myself um, in a way that I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like talking to the void. I don't I can't be alone with my own thoughts. So I really want to just talk about something, just talk about what I got to talk about and get through it. If anybody's struggling with depression or anxiety, um, it's definitely a good idea to go out there and talk to a doctor. So I'm not really giving you advice, but um, I benefited from it a little bit, at least just talking. I got a lot of people around me to talk about it, but they're not always here. They're not always available for me to talk to. So I'm using my free time to do this. This is kind of just my own little stream. It's gonna be a blog. It's more mostly about me. Um, but it's also about the people around me and kind of the struggles that I've shared with them. But also the struggles that I've had to endure alone, or you know thoughts I have. So I did do a stream a couple days ago. It's linked in the description. Um, I will also put that in chat. All right, and there you go, previous stream. Whoops, I misspelled it. Oh, you can't edit that. Okay, so you can't edit that. All right, wonderful. So I had kind of touched on my upbringing a little bit in the previous stream, and I kind of want to elaborate a little bit more. I grew up in Michigan. I did spend some time in Florida, but um, I'm I haven't really left this area for the most part for most of my life. So I'm a Midwesterner, um, and I am the oldest of my family. I've got a sister and two brothers, and it was just me and my sister for the first handful of years of my life. It was between my mom and my dad, obviously. That's and I. This is for this is not for the ISO robot necessarily, but this is for Midnight as a meatbag, the base in which ISO is based on. So this is coming from Midnight, um, but ISO benefits from it. Um, anyways, so I'm the oldest, but my sister was born less than a year later, and then my parents broke up when I was like 3. Um, we lived in a mobile home, um, and we were pretty we were pretty insane. I actually talked. My family was here not too long ago, and they were talking about how we were probably the most like troublemaking kids ever. Um, Basically, the uh, me and my sister would go into the cabinets in our mobile home and just take what was in there and throw it all over the ground. Um, this was in the 80s, so there was carpet. There were these like everything was wood paneling. I remember distinctly hiding in one of the cabinets, um, just to pop out like a little demon child. But you know, let's see. We did have this like it was like a chest. It was like a chest of for like it was an ottoman. That's what it was. It was an ottoman with like a cloth top on it, and I remember the burn mark. I don't remember doing it, but basically, I took an iron and just put it face. I turned it on somehow. I was like 3 or 2 or something like that. Somehow I turned it on, put it face down on the cloth ottoman top, and just let it sit there. And it burned and burned and burned. There was a burn mark, but it didn't like catch on fire. So that's one of an early core memory I have. Um, there I got pictures of when I was younger, so they're more acquired memories, but I know them now. And I remember, like running around and just doing, different, like just being a kid, right? Just having you know, running around in shirt and underwear. And there's a picture of my sister. My sister has me on a leash, and I'm like going around on all fours like a dog, like that. That's a picture that we got. So it's like, um, I remember. Oh, this is probably why I'm blind. When I had this tendency to want to jump on the bed in the middle room. Um, Basically the whole room was a bed. There wasn't really any room around the edge of the bed because the room was so small. And I think it was like a queen size bed, so yeah, it was all bed, no, you know, no room. But sorry, I'm repeating myself. The We would jump on that bed. We would jump, 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 and we had these like metal blinds, the cheapo metal blinds that you have. And when the sun was setting, I would stare at the sun relentlessly and jump up and down until my eyes hurt. And then I'd look away, and then I jump some more, jump some more, jump some more, and look at the sun some more. Just continue. I just rinse, repeat, right? So that's probably a good reason why my eyes are so screwed up. But um, I do remember doing that. Um, let's see. That was later on, but so my parents did break up at some point, but I can't disentangle. I'm having trouble disentangling because when I was so young. I'm having trouble disentangling when my dad, when my parents broke up, my dad had control over um the mobile home. That was like, he only had it. I think he only had it for a year. That's what they were telling me. He only had it for a year. So I would actually spend time over with my dad because it was split custody, and it was still in the mobile home. So I think a lot of what I'm remembering is from when I was with my dad. And so I do remember watching Barney the dinosaur. I do remember watching Baywatch. That those were those were some memories that I had. I do remember. I remember this. Okay, so I feel like this is later on, like not like super early when I was young. Young. It was more like 3 or 4 probably. But I remember I had this flute. I had played this plastic flute, and it's the kind where you blow over the top. It's like different size tubes, and I remember playing with it a whole bunch, and then like losing it, and then going around and trying to find the flute, and my dad trying to help me find the flute, and I couldn't find it, and I still miss that flute, like, but it was just a toy, But it kind of made me disappointed I couldn't find it. And even after we moved out, we couldn't find the stupid flute. And I remember one. So another one was we had this like those ride on like not go kart. It's those like big wheelers with a golf cart battery in it, and you could ride around, and it's really slow. It's a kid's toy, but I remember really really liking the four-wheeler that we had. And it was the thing was that it was really slow because this was in the 80s or 90s, early 90s. They were really slow to charge, and we used it a whole bunch. We went around, driving around, having a lot of fun with that. And eventually the battery broke. It just refused to stop charging, I think. Um, yeah. So it didn't last very long. The battery broke like within the first like couple months. I remember jump roping, pogo sticking, and this is like just directly outside of the mobile home. Using chalk to draw on the concrete was a big one. Um, I'm gonna get to some more uh things that I remember because I think my mom was in the apartment at this point, and this was like early '90s, so Um, I might jump back to the whole, like mobile home thing, but I'll jump forward and backwards. So I remember really enjoying um really enjoying oh god. Okay, no, that might be a little bit further forward. Okay, okay. Yeah, so I don't really remember if I had a big preference for things as a young child. Um I did Um, I did grow into liking sci-fi over time, but I think that was later on. I don't know what impressed me later on, but I'll get to it. Um, I do have one more mobile home memory. Well, I got a couple of them, I think. You know, uh, one of them was that. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, one of them was I wasn't really fully like potty trained until I think way later on, or I was just a spiteful asshole. Um, but when I felt the need to use the bathroom, I would just go and like complete disregard for anything or anyone around me. um, I had gotten to a point where I was just laying down in the bed with my dad and my sister, and I just whipped it out and just did a friggin' sprinkler like to the ceiling, like like I'm doing the whole like sprinkler on the lawn thing. And immediately my dad whips me out and puts me on the toilet, and I'm crying, and he's like flipping the mattress and like pulling it out of the room, and me and my sister are standing there, and I'm like mouthing to my sister, I think he's mad. It's like looking back at myself going like, no shit, he's mad, you just fucking peed everywhere. So there's some weird memories in there, but nothing outside of like what a kid would do, a young kid would do. But I was especially an asshole about a lot of stuff. Um, I was not diagnosed with autism till later on. It took quite some time to kind of get that like the problems out. And usually and that had to do with daycare and then later on subsequently school. So the problems were just hiding below the surface. And so my mom remarried to my stepdad, right? And I remember I remember being like, "Oh, this guy's pretty cool. This guy's pretty cool. I really like him. We we had the front bedroom in the apartment, and I think we were on, yeah, we were in the ground floor, and the place had a balcony. And the balcony, and the thing that I remember specifically about this apartment complex is that all of um the like closets in the place had mirrored finishes on the front of them. So the whole place kind of looked bigger because it had, all the mirrors everywhere. This is around the time that Fern Gully was on VHS, and I watched it on repeat because, what kid doesn't like animation, right? And they had a swimming pool too, and we had and it was kind of in the forest too. Like it wasn't like really deep in the forest, but it was like apartment complex forest, where you just got some trees around. But um, I remember my sister closed her hand on the door um, in the car when when we were super young, and I was just thinking to myself like, you know, I keep my fingers clear of the door. Never want to touch that ever. Never come anywhere near closing my fingers on the door. Um, but yeah, my stepdad I thought was pretty cool. We had the front bedroom, so the window faced outwards, and he's a big boxing fan, right? And he put this like boxing poster in our bedroom. And by the way, he still has a million boxing posters to this day. But um, he had the Hagler versus Kearns. I'd have to go look at it, but basically it was like a painting, right? And it was like a boxing versus poster, and I just he only had a handful of them then, but there's like a couple that we still have now that I look back and go, I remember that, from a long time ago, that's like prized possessions. But I remember we were sleeping or something like that, and he had gotten home late, and he was like tapping on the window, and he was like waving like, "Hi, how you doing?" We're waving back like, "Hey, hey." I didn't like to. I was a night owl, so I never really liked to sleep. Like during the day or even in the evening for that matter, and you know, he had a truck, and I think this is before the thing with the pool, but so basically he had a truck, and we were driving around, and I had this tendency of sticking my hand out the window, and um so he said don't do that multiple times. Don't stick your hand out the window. Don't stick out your hand. Don't stick your hand out the window. And I kept doing it, and I wouldn't listen. This is like an old Ford F-150 or something like that from like the 90s. But I stuck my hand out the window one last time, and he was like, "Okay, you're gonna get a timeout, when we get home." And so I went to go sleep in my parents' bed just to like I was sulking. I was mad about it, right? And um, I spent about like an hour and a half or 2 hours in there, and my mom had this like fluffy white comforter on the bed, and I was awake, and they were like, "Okay, you can come out now. You can come out now." And I was sulking, so I stayed asleep thinking about Tonka trucks and excavators and stuff, and didn't want to like feel good about it, like I was not being very receptive um to the point of the thing. But so anyways, we were in this apartment, and we had my uncle who had a cool Corvette, and he could take the hard top off. It was a 1970s 19 it was a Stingray. It was the classic 1970s or 1960s Stingray Corvette, and he could take the hard top off, and we'd drive around in that. But we went to the swimming pool one time, and um my mom, my stepdad, no, I think my mom and my uncle and my aunt were there, and we were swimming. And I remember this pool had this like really big like grated drain at the bottom of the deep end, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit. So I was really afraid of the deep end of the pool. And my sister had like little floaties. I was getting better at swimming. I would hold on to the edge and just sort of like wade out into the center of the pool and then come back. um but my sister had floaties, and she was just floating around. And then there was this one time that I noticed that she was sort of just floating at the bottom of the pool near the drain. And I immediately was like, I can't do anything about this. I'm helpless in the situation. I don't know what to do. So I went up to where um my mom, my aunt, and my uncle were talking, I think, and I was like, "Hey, hey, like trying to interrupt," and they were like, "What?" And I'm just pointing at the pool, like, my sister," like, and my uncle dove in and got her and saved my sister's life. But we talk about that story pretty often here in the family. Like, it's like a talking point. But um, one of the floaties like slipped off, and she just started sinking because she didn't know how to swim at the time. So there was that event. I remember this happened afterwards. There was a pretty like violent storm. And this is again still early '90s. I remember the sirens were going off, and the apartment complex had this thing where the windows, like they were really tall windows, like in the hallway area, and they didn't have like a lot of wall. It was just you know all window, where you exit and enter into the hallway. And I remember looking over into the darkness and not seeing anything. And we went into the basement because there's a tornado warning. Um, that they had like cited a tornado, and apparently it had jumped over or was nearby. Um, and that sort of like that was the beginning of my like autism thing. This is my mom tells me these stories, and I'm just like, I don't know. I remember the tornado, but I don't remember this being my obsession about things. But I remember us being in the basement and nothing happening, and me going like, "Oh, is there still tornado? Is there still tornado?" Um, I would get fixated on things, and I still have this like, I don't know, not obsession with tornadoes, but like fascination with them. There's a degree of like fear, like a strong fear of violent storms, and when the sirens start going off, I take action. I'm gonna go hide in the basement because I don't want to die. I don't want to, and that's kind of reinforcing my stresses right now. Is I don't want to die. I don't want to have a significantly degraded um, quality of life. You know, I don't want to lose my ability to conduct my own business, my own mental, my own thoughts. I don't want to have other people dictate it. So that was the beginning of the autism spectrum thing that we called Asperger's back in the day. Um, I spent a decent amount of time in um like in and out of therapy uh places, but this was like later when we moved out from there into our first house. Um but basically uh the real kind of red flags was when I was in the we called it Red Bell. I think it has a different name now, but basically I was in it was it was pretty close to it was daycare. And the daycare, the problem with that I kept having with the daycare is that it was significantly like communalized. Everything was kind of just like everyone together kind of thing, and there wasn't really a lot of like individual like care taken to each kid. I remember uh, doing arts and crafts as a group. I remember potato sticks being my favorite. And I found potato sticks later on. I found it in a hardware store of all places, and it kind of harked back to that like that really early memory of that. I didn't know they still made those. um, basically, I remember eating glue. That's probably contributing to the brain damage. The brain damage. The brain damage. Even the toilets and everything and this everything was all is all communalized. And I think this was still during that time where it was I was partially in the apartment complex and partially at in my dad's um mobile home, right? And the thing about the place is that I also didn't get along with other kids there. I do remember the weird smell of cellophane and coffee, and like these really big blocks that, like with letters on them that you could like stack up. Um, I remember like they had like Lincoln Logs, like life size Lincoln Log stuff, and then I was biting, and they had to like isolate me from the rest of the kids. But we had these like, okay, so I and this is really early memories, so I'm not gonna remember all of it, but I'm just remembering them in flashes. We would get on these buses, and the buses there were like Econoline Ford, long extended, like it was the really long extended bus style ones, and we would get in these buses and we go to go swimming, and this is before I was like proficient ish at swimming, so I wasn't really like they would hold me up and I would try to like flail and I was doing a terrible job, and I was still really deathly afraid of the deep, of the water. And um I remember that the other driver, we kept getting out, like he would gun he would gun it at the stoplights. So the stoplight would turn yellow, and then we're on the bus behind him, and these aren't short buses, these are like Econoline, stuff. But he would gun it, and it would make the whole van like jerk up, in front of us, and he just, he'd go through that yellow light like no tomorrow, and our bus driver kept going like, damn, he keeps beating us, he keeps losing us at the stoplights. Oh, sorry. Oh, your my stream is keeping you from working out. I'm sorry, bro. Oh, I know. I'm just telling stories, and but anyways, I'm gonna continue. Uh yeah, so these are like, and this happened multiple times. So every time we'd lose the front bus, and we'd be like late, every time. And uh they eventually kicked me out of the daycare. I had to go to a different place, which I liked far less, and I don't remember anything about. It had this weird lobby with like lights and stuff lighting up the far wall. And one of the things is the let's see, I'm just digging for memories here. I remember the playgrounds were all enclosed, and it was kind of bleak. Okay, no problem, no problem, Joyce. Thanks for listening. um, but afterwards, I think they kept me out of daycare because I was more like, I think my dad took over. I think that's what ended up happening. Is he became kind of the primary caretaker for a little bit, and this is where kind of that what I was talking about before, where I was crying for my mom because I was with my dad full time, and I don't think my sister was there. I think she was there intermittently. So I had really broken up memories of this. I do remember that um, he would try to feed me porridge, or what is that stuff called? It's not porridge. It's mush. It's that mush stuff. I forget. It's like people like to put cinnamon in it or whatever. Um. Anyways, that stuff. I learned I hated it. I didn't like it. Um. I did like peas briefly, and then I hated them. But I definitely liked cornflakes and frosted flakes, oatmeal. Thank you. Um. Yeah, absolutely hated oatmeal. He was like, "But you liked this before," and I'm like, "I don't like it now." like I think I was sulking or angry or something, but I was uh not eating things that he I had previously eaten. So, um, here's another story. This is before all of this. This is when my mom and my dad were together still, I think. This is when my mom was still living in the apartment, or not the apartment, the mobile home. So my aunt tells me this story pretty often. And my aunt she was just telling me how like the other day, like we were asshole children, right? We weren't the best, and the thing is that we didn't bother her, so she really liked us, and um like so anyways, she told us the story multiple times about how, because my mom was a smoker, and this also might be contributing to the brain damage, the autism or whatever, because I'm pretty sure my mom was a smoker when she was pregnant with me, and basically she was a pretty hardcore smoker up until I was like 2, right? And the reason she stopped smoking is because um, my aunt knew that me and my sister were like would just mess with everything in the whole part in the whole place, and so she told us to go get her cigarettes and break them into pieces and throw them around, the mobile home. And we did it multiple times and she finally quit. Um, so she likes to claim that we were the reason, but it was really her that got my mom to stop smoking. I don't think my dad was ever a smoker, by the way. I'm pretty sure he's just I don't I don't think he did. I don't think he was much of a drinker either. Yeah, and I don't drink either, so that makes sense. But I do take more from my dad's side of the family than my mom's side of the family. But my mom is a heavy alcoholic, so like there's a persistent like thing where when she's stressed out, she drinks and she gets kind of like becomes like a dementia patient. Like you'll tell her something and she'll just forget. So like um and sometimes she's violent about it. It's kind of funny, but not like in a like physical way, but violent, like angry, like yelling and stuff, right? Or guilt tripping or something. But anyways, she drinks a lot, and none of us kids do. So, well, not anymore at least. So later on, my dad moved into his own apartment, um, and I think we were just moving out. We were just moving out of our main apartment, and I think my mom got custody again, and I was seeing therapists at the time, just to deal with the like problems. They had diagnosed me with what's it called, depression and anxiety before the whole autism thing that was like way down the road. Um, so this is probably like I don't know 94 or something. But it was getting time for me to start, getting close to school, right? And oh, I do have one more memory of the daycare, right? So I remember we had this big communal area, and everyone was, and they have nap time. That's usually how daycares go. So with the thing about nap time is I would never do it. Never, 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 ever would want to sleep during the day. I just had too much energy. I just couldn't do it, right? And I do remember in the apartment not being able to sleep during the day, and that being a problem, And so we were standing around, and I'm with the caretaker, and I'm talking to the caretaker, and I think someone that I know was nearby or whatever. But I'm like, I remember saying this. I'm gonna go to school, and this is like I'm getting ready to go to school kind of thing. I'm gonna go to school, and then I'm gonna go to high school, and then I'm gonna go to high school, and then I'm gonna go to high school, like, and just continuing to go on and on about it. And they'd be like, "Shh, the other kids are trying to sleep. Be quiet," you know. And I just remember saying that. That's one of the things that like stuck out in my memory. Besides the eating glue and the potato sticks there, but um so there's a little bit of a disconnect because there was some stress and somewhere involved in there. We Shortly after the apartment, we my stepdad's brother, he had a place, and we had been there a couple times, and it was a small ranch, and um, they had bought it. They bought it from my stepdad's brother, and this is after they got married and stuff. So like all within a year kind of thing. And things happen in slow mo when you're a kid, so you remember them as being way longer than it actually was. But I remember there's a back slider screen door um, leading out to the backyard. And I remember we were checking the place out before because it was emptied out. My uncle had left he got his own other place, right? So he had still had this place, but he sold it to my stepdad. And there's this like slider door, and I was a hyperactive, shithead. And so I ran in there and I ran around in every single room, and I ran around and ran and ran and ran. I was going like manic laughing like a crazed lunatic. And I ran around, and eventually I think he had closed the screen door, and I ran into the screen door and popped the screen door out of its socket. And it was like, okay, we're done. We're leaving. We can't we can't have you here because you're freaking insane. So we had to leave, and I just that's all I remember from that. That was the first moment of our new house, and so my dad had moved into his own apartment. I think I think I lived with him very short period of time. I think it was only like a month, while everything got situated at home. And so I remember playing and I think this is the early moments of me using playing games on a computer because um my stepdad's other brother had like an original Nintendo. And I remember being like fascinated with it, but not like enthralled with it. My dad, however, had a full-fledged desktop computer in his new apartment, and I remember playing this weird game. It wasn't Rayman. It was a platformer, but it was kind of like Rayman. It was like aliens and like bubbles or something. I don't remember what it was called, but it had a very distinct style to it. And um I kept cursing at it. I kept going like, this shit sucks, like, and my dad's like, you can't say that. Stop cursing, like, stop cursing. And um let's see. I'm positive I'm skipping stuff here, but basically this was like 90, yeah, 94. Yeah, okay. So basically, I remember messing with the contrast on the monitor, going like, aha, I can make it look completely black. Oh, I can make it look completely white. They had Sim City, the original Sim City, and it was like Sim City Mars or something like that. Like, and like Sim City Earth, and I remember being like, this is impossible. I don't understand any of this. Oh God, this might have been a little bit later, but yeah, same apartment, different memory. My dad was a Jesus freak. I should probably give a little background on that. My biological dad was like came from a very religious household. Um, he had his two brothers. His youngest brother, in a um, died in a pedestrian like crossing, and so I'm giving the history of my dad now. I gotta give the history of my mom as well at some point, so I can give a little more context to what I've talked about before. But this is where it's relevant, basically. So my dad had, uh, like they all lived in this area in near the Detroit area, and him and his brothers had different they did different things. But my dad had worked for my uncle, and my uncle, like the eldest of the uncles, he had a roofing business, and he was working for my dad was working for my uncle, and basically all of the brothers worked for my uncle from an early age. And my dad he fell off a ladder when he was young and busted his knee up. But so I think my dad and my uncle, the youngest uncle, were out doing something, and I don't remember the exact context, so this is all paraphrasing. Um, the youngest uncle had crossed the street and didn't look both ways, and he was thrown like several feet, and died on the pavement, and it hurts my dad to talk about it. He breaks up every time he talks about it. But that's like it's like a legend of that side of the family. Every time we'd go over to my grandparents' place, they talk about it. But this is leading me into my ultra religious um, grandparents, who on my dad's side, grandpa, um, was a heavy smoker. Or they were both heavy smokers, but like heavy smoker, worked at night. Was a worked in a factory, and they had moved out into the country. They were getting kind of old. They were like, whatever, we're done with this. We're done with this like suburban life, right? So there, my dad brought me over to. They had like purchased a plot of land on a lake, and my dad brought me over to this like plot, right? And it was like this huge excavated area that they had like pulled out from for where the foundation of the house was going to go. And I remember us standing there and just kind of like looking out into the lake and throwing stuff into the lake. And you know um God, this was early. I remember them building the place, but in bits and pieces. Like, they had like big pieces of plywood going up, and the holes or the windows would go. And I kind of have these, like, whenever I have a dream about a place, like this place kind of like is conjured in my head, because it's like such an early memory of like construction and house structure. um, and it was a classic, like vaulted ceiling. Like, it was a classic 90s style house. It had a central vacuum. Um, so they had like they had like these little plugs on the wall where you could plug in a hose, and you get suction, like vacuum suction, right? But they absolutely destroyed the place because they were friggin' smokers. So like every surface of the place smelled like smoker's cigarette smell, right? And it's weird that my dad was never a smoker, so like, but anyways, they were super duper ultra religious, and um, I didn't really like them that much. I found them to be very abrasive, very pushy, but my dad was also very religious, so he had drilled into my mind from an early age. Oh God, man, I have a lot more memories than I thought I do. So, you know, don't don't ever let don't ever say Jesus' name in vain. Um don't ever like think bad about anything, like be good to whatever, good to people or something, like, gay people are bad or something, like he would give the like ultra hardline religious like spiel to me, and I took it to heart, and I believed wholeheartedly in it. And I remember him telling me like, we're all gonna die someday, and to get right with Jesus. And I was like, wait, we're gonna die? He's like, yeah, you stop existing. I'm just like, I don't want to die. like and it freaked me out. Like, it absolutely to the core foundationally freaked me out that, like, as a kid, telling a kid that he's gonna die someday is just it's kind of rough. Like, it and it still hurts me to think that he said these things to me at such a young age. But this was in my like hoarder grandma's house. So yeah, okay, so we had um, this is my great grandma, I think. Um, and I didn't know what a hoarder was at the time, but my mom tells me like, oh, yeah, those piles of newspapers and big things. She's a hoarder, and this is like the begin. God, this is the beginning of the God, this is early '90s, so yeah, this would have been the like Gulf War, I think. So I remember my dad watching on my great grandma's TV, watching the tanks roll in, into the Middle East, and him going, "Oh no, that's not good." Um, we played this weird. Okay, there was this weird game that I remember my grandma had. It was like Othello, but it was like 3D. I can't. I couldn't describe it. If you pin me down, I couldn't describe it. It had like levels to it, but um, I remember Jello. Wow, these. Oh my God, they're all disjointed memories. So I remember my grandma had this thing for Jello. Right, she always had Jello for us, and of course, stupid grandma candy. But she always liked to really like treat us to Jello, and I really like Jello because of her. But basically the thing is that the place, now that I'm remembering it, the place did look like hadn't been touched since the 20s. So like, and but it was like a hoarder too on top of that. So everything was dirty, everything was displaced, and everything was horribly mismanaged. But um I don't think I've got many more memories of the place, other than my dad telling me that I was going to die. And also, I think some other stupid religious dogma that I've completely forgotten, but she died a long time ago, so we didn't go there past the early 90s. So, anyways, my dad got his own apartment. Um, I'm jumping back. I'm jumping back now. So he got his own apartment, and this is where I was on the computer and like kind of messing with the contrast and playing, whatever. And I was having emotional issues at the time, and I remember them talking, me and my mom, or sorry, my mom and my dad talking about my emotional issues and my coping and my ability to cope with things. And it was in the background, so I don't remember what they were talking about specifically. I was, hopping around on a pogo stick and drawing with chalk on the concrete. And I think this is probably the time that I was like yelling for my mom. But they were like arguing and stuff. And so my dad was seeing someone trying to remarry, right? And I remember this nice lady with this like she had a like a colonial, and she had a Grand Prix, a Pontiac Grand Prix. And she had a cat, and I would play with the cat. And I would like there was like those sticks with the little fuzzball in the end. I'd play with the cat and stuff. Um, and we'd go over there, and we'd come back to my dad's apartment, and we'd go over there. It was every other once in a while, right? And I kind of liked her. She was cool. But I don't know if this was the thing that made him not marry her. But basically, we had just gotten done cleaning her Grand Prix, and it was like sparkling clean. I think it was black, but super clean. We went out for a ride, and it was like, yeah, we're going for a ride. And a bird had pooped on the window, and she did the pouty face, and it's like, oh no, we just cleaned it. And so, um, I think she had like in the back room, there was this like, we were watching TV. Shit. I had a weird dream that I remember from that era where I was like Play-Doh, where I was like being like cut in half or something, and then reforming and being like, I'm Jello or I'm Play-Doh or something. And yeah, I don't remember seeing her ever again. She had a pretty cool garden though, like picket fence and all that, white picket fence. Um, I hardly remember. I only remember her name, so that's about it. Um, so we're in the new house, and the new house was kind of the start of my like emotional destruction, the like downfall of my mental health as a kid. Um, and this is like back, living with my mom and my stepdad, and it's all disjointed. It's a small ranch, but it was big to me. And I hadn't started school yet, but I was about to. And I'm just gonna jump ahead and then jump back if I remember something. But um, I remember that I went to the first grade. It was I think I skipped over kindergarten and went straight to first grade because I was put in school earlier than I should have been. And the thing about first grade is usually you got a little bit of emotional intelligence to do stuff. Yeah, I didn't have that. I I was pretty woefully inept when it came to school. I came in challenging the first grade teacher, um, basically saying like, "Well, my mom said this, my mom said that," and my teacher going, "Okay, either your mom's wrong or you're just misquoting her." And she was smart. She was dealing with a child. So, um, and then oh god, I remember specific friends from first grade, and sheesh, I'm gonna have to think. I'm gonna have to really kind of um think about this. But that I think I got most of the early childhood stuff out of the way. Um, I wanted to get I wanted to get a good amount of the um like elementary school stuff in the next stream. Maybe I can cap in some stuff from my early childhood too. Um, I I don't think I didn't start therapy until after I was in school, and I definitely didn't. I wasn't ready for school. That was one of the things is I think I was coddled or something. Um, 90, yeah, that put it right squarely in there. We had a van, so we had just gotten a van too. We moved into the house. We had a van. Um, my brother hadn't been born yet, so it was early days. I don't remember the adjustment period because school was kind of the thing that really took over. And yeah, so I'm gonna just end the stream and then go from there. In the next stream. Hopefully it isn't tomorrow. Hopefully I'm not feeling bad tomorrow. I feel like these sessions really help me organize some thoughts. Help me preserve some memories. Maybe hopefully address some of my woes. I doubt it, but at least think about it in some have a perspective on some of these problems that I have. Um, I have repeated these things before to other people. It's been because of therapy. Like therapy, you got to kind of talk about your history a lot. Um, One of the things that I think that is bothering me. I think the primary thing is um, that I've lost control of my mental health because I feel like I've lost control of my life and my security. Um, I haven't. It's one of the foundational things about um, you know being happy is um, having your needs met. One of the things about meeting your needs is having a comfortable place, stable place to live, having a stable source of food, having a good amount of social interaction, social you know um, people to interact with. But I think the thing that's really shaking me right now is having that stability in my future, like having the idea that my future is that I'm comfortable with the future being my own, that I have control over it, and I have no control. I feel like I have no control over my future or any particular like long term plans that I've been setting out, and yeah, it just feels like it's shattered right now. So I'm working through it. This I think this session, this part of this stream, um, it's just the beginning. So I'll have more streams. if you watched all the way through, appreciate it. If you haven't checked out the other stream, check out the other stream. That's where I kind of like did my first kind of like talk about this. Just to kind of tell you that, you know, I'm not feeling good. My head is not in the right place. If you feel like you're able to, if you have the means, definitely please donate. I put a link in the description. Um, I don't have insurance. My health issues are all over the place. So you know, not just mental health, but physical health. Um, it would be hugely, hugely appreciated. Um, I I don't know where the endpoint's going to be, but I'll see you at it. Um, until the next time, meatbags. Thanks for watching.